My name is Patrick Redding. I'm the creative director at Warner Brothers Games Montreal, working on Gotham Knights.
What can you tell us about the overall tone compared to the other Batman games we've seen?
So it's an interesting study in contrasts, because on the one hand, the scenario that we have set up is very heavily linked up with themes and ideas of dark urban folklore, right? You're talking about the Court of Owls as a main adversary. You're talking about a Gotham City where we've tried to expose the history of the city in its very architecture and the very layout and design of the city itself. That implies a kind of darkness, a kind of rain-soaked grittiness that I think most of us have in our heads when we imagine the place. But at the same time, in Batman's absence, now we have a new generation of these four young heroes who obviously know Batman very, very well. They know Gotham City very, very well, but they're bringing really different attitudes to the fight. That difference in attitudes results sometimes in personality conflicts within the group, which we explore in depth, especially in the Belfry when they have their masks off. But also, it's like, what attitude do they bring to the fight? What attitude do they bring to their interactions with the supporting cast and the major villains and the other major characters? How do they react to learning about the existence of the Court of Owls, right? Batman, their mentor, was someone who lived in conspiracy. He lived in the worst case scenarios. He prepared for everything. So for him, facing off against the Court of Owls becomes this kind of perfect existential face-off, right? For these kids, some of whom are like, I don't need to be prepared. I can joke my way through this. It's a very, very different proposition to suddenly find yourself confronted with a threat like that. So we wanted to make sure that we saw those kinds of contrasts, and that if you were playing as these different heroes, you were going to be experiencing a different interaction as a result.
In-place relationships that a lot of baggage.
What was it like bringing the Court of Owls to life? Because since we haven't seen them besides in the comics.
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously a huge potential to that concept, because it is such a compelling idea that you take the thing that has always made Batman, in the position of advantage, which is his just buttoned up knowledge of Gotham City, his absolute awareness, situational awareness of everything that's going on in his city, and then you completely undermine that with an enemy that is effectively invisible or has eluded notice as far as he's concerned. So it's such a compelling idea, but then if you want to bring that to players who are not Batman, like none of us are Batman, I'm not a billionaire science ninja, I can't fly a space shuttle. Yeah. Okay, sorry, I shouldn't speak out of turn. Any of you could clearly be, I just know that I am not Batman. But the point being that I think, you're putting players in the shoes of somebody who knows more than they do and has more skill and proficiency and competency at dealing with Gotham-style threats. And so we needed to find ways to turn the court into enemy archetypes that they could fight, and where there would be a range of surprise and a degree of challenge that maybe they don't see with the other enemies that they're fighting in the game. What are the thematic elements of the Court of Owls that can find their way into game systems? Things like resurrection, vulnerability to cold. Like some of these things are really mechanical when you get down to it, and some of them are more conceptual. And so that was a big part of the process. It was like unpacking what we knew about the court from the comics and from other media, and then finding the things that had the best possible mapping to the world of the game.
So was there always a hard focus on making sure the traversal, since Gotham's so vertical and stuff, each character has their own distinct way of traversing it, or was there one slice where it was like, it's all the same, they all have the same grappling guns and all that stuff, they're just using Batman's old gear?
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you all of the how the sausage gets made stories about the game design process, and we went through tons of different permutations about ways that we could approach it. I think we knew from the get-go that everyone was going to be able to grapple, because being able to grapple, being able to quickly kind of manage the verticality of what Gotham City is about is such a core aspect to that fantasy, and that's one area that we didn't need to reinvent the wheel on that. That was something that's well established and well understood. Everybody loves it. It feels good when you can quickly zip up to a rooftop somewhere. But I think beyond that, what we realized was, because we didn't want to create a situation where we have these four heroes who are different from each other at the start, but depending on which one becomes the new knight of Gotham City, they're all going to end up converging into the same kind of semi-Batman. We didn't want this. We really wanted them to remain remain distinct and actually become more distinct and more different as the player continues to progress. So what that meant was essentially unlocking not just the main ability trees in the RPG sense that we have at the start, but introducing this kind of a fourth ability tree that we call the knighthood tree that is also different for each character and really is like a reflection of what it means to then assume responsibility for the entire city. With that, we said every one of them needs their own style of traversal. That's like step one of knighthood is, and I mean, as it happens, Batgirl glides, so if you're a fan of the Arkham series, you're going to find that a familiar way of getting around. But we felt like it was really important that we could speak to the philosophical differences of these characters at every turn through the actions, through the verbs essentially that we give the player.